And last but not least, Sam from MakeSpace. Wow, you guys made it all the way to the end, and a bunch of people back there. Hey, if you have feedback on how this went, team@launch.co, team@launch.co. Hey, Sam. Here's another Brooklyn boy. How are you?
Nice to see you.
From Bay Ridge. Mike's from Bay Ridge. He's over there. My two brothers are here. We got a lot of Bay Ridge.
I saw Josh earlier.
You saw Josh earlier?
You know, I haven't seen him since 2011 launch conference, and we never discussed this. My very first institutional investor I met at launch conference.
You did?
Yes.
Oh, wow, that's fantastic.
Venture 51, Brandon.
Oh,
and
Venture
Ryan.
51.
Yes.
Yeah, those guys are awesome.
Yes, I met them at your conference
That's awesome.
3 years ago.
Well, that's why we do it. Inspire, to support founders and inspire innovation is what we do. Now, you've been on a tear with MakeSpace, so tell us, what's going on in the business? How does it work? Has anybody heard of MakeSpace, by the way, in the audience? Oh, wow, so some people have.
Has anybody used it? Yeah.
That's a bit, oh, you
really?
have?
Awesome.
What did you think?
It was a super easy experience. My co-founder also was one of your ambassadors.
So it was a super easy experience. So explain to people what you're doing.
Yeah, so we're creating at MakeSpace cloud storage for physical things. And the easy way to think about it is we are like Fresh Direct for storage. We drop off these plastic bins at customers' homes.
Yep.
They schedule a reservation online. We show up, they fill up the belongings that they want to store with us, things that fit into this bin, as well as certain oversized items like golf clubs, skis, etc. And then we take them back away to a big warehouse. And what we actually do is we create a digital catalog for them online so that whenever they want something, instead of visiting that dinky storage unit on the West Side Highway like here in New York, they simply log into their account, push a button, and they can get any of their stuff back.
So pretty simple. When did you launch it?
So I actually incubated this as the first entrepreneur in residence at Upfront Ventures out in Los Angeles.
Mark Suster's company, I'm sorry, Mark Suster's venture firm.
That's right.
So you incubated.
That's right. So I was working on it from January 1st through June 1st of last year, and we actually became operational in September. So it's really less than 8-9 months.
And how has the reception been? What cities are you operating in?
So we're currently available here in New York City, and we're actually the highest rated consumer storage company in New York already.
It's kind of a low benchmark, though. I mean, most people hate these storage companies.
Yeah, I mean
let's be honest.
to have an 80 plus, we have an 82 NPS as of today. So to have
promoter score coming up again, great.
So to even have something as high as that is great. But you're right. Well, the competition is actually pretty low in terms of customer satisfaction.
People hate them.
Yeah, I mean, think about it. It's actually, the problem with self-storage is that it's a real estate business. And what I mean by that is the following. These buildings were bought 70 years ago by someone who literally bought parking lots and then turned them into a self-storage facility because there's very little overhead. And what they ultimately do is they flip it into luxury condos or hotels or even parking lots, which if you're looking at the diversification of a real estate portfolio, self-storage is great. They only have to hire one person that works there, and the tenants just keep paying because they store away their stuff. My problem was I wanted to change the business completely because after Hurricane Sandy, my ex-girlfriend and we had to rent her a storage unit because she lost her entire apartment in the flood. And when we put that stuff in that night, I literally could not find her snow boots that we had just stored away. And I said to myself, why isn't there Dropbox meets a self-storage unit?
Yeah.
And what I realized is all those reasons why consumers hate self-storage, for example, it's dingy and they don't put a lot of money into it, is because that affects essentially the money that they can make. Why there aren't trash cans on the floor at self-storage? Well, they actually don't want you to throw stuff away. The problem is the business model fundamentally is broken for consumers. And when you start to flip it like a reverse Amazon, where you take that big, everyone's seen Manhattan Mini Storage, I'm sure, or something like this on the West Side Highway. If you take that facility and you move it outside of the city center, just like Amazon did, you can start to do three things. You can start to attract customers that maybe don't live within a certain distance of the facility. You can actually start to pass along a cost savings because just like the bookstore had to raise the price of their books every year to coincide with the rental price, self-storage is no different. We can actually pass along that cost savings. And the third is we never run out of space. So Manhattan Mini Storage or any other storage facility, they fill up and that's it. The only way to get in is to pay a higher price, and that's why you see the rent going up every 9 months. With MakeSpace, we can fill up a warehouse unlimited and just...
And how far away from where we are right now do you store currently?
Yeah.
And eventually where do you see it being stored?
Absolutely. So if you think about like a physical data center, right,
Yeah.
almost like Amazon Web Services, thinking of it that way, our big warehouse is in Jersey City, New Jersey, and we have a distribution center here in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, which is where our vans meet in the morning, because we run a vertically integrated transportation service that the people coming to your home are actually MakeSpace employees. They're insured by us. We have a $2 million insurance policy. We actually will move that.
So you didn't outsource it.
No, everything's vertically integrated. In fact, I'll show you some of the driver applications that we've built in order to really power that vertically integrated.
Yeah, let's pull that up here. Let's show it.
So actually what I'll do is I'll do a little quick demo.
Yeah.
And we're launching something on stage for the first time
Oh, cool.
here, which is our consumer-facing application. So let me see.
Let's pull up the iPhone, yeah.
So I'll pull up the iPhone. Here we go. Pardon me.
No worries.
So what we have here is a box of winter gear, as you can all see. This was my ski and some goggles and stuff like that. So are we up? Perfect.
Yep.
So what we're actually going to do is, let's say we've already dropped this bin off at the customer's home, and this is something that we're showing for the very first time. And I'll go kind of slowly through this. We want people to never forget what they have in storage. So what we're actually doing is launching in about 4 to 6 weeks an iPhone application to let people individually itemize all of the stuff that they have in MakeSpace. So we would select the bin here. I'm going to type in the description, and we see people do things like kids' clothing to all kinds
Books,
of variety.
whatever.
Books, exactly.
So winter clothing.
So
boom.
winter clothes. We're going to take a picture of the bin.
So we got a general idea of what's at least on the top layer.
Yeah, or I could take 1,000 photos of every single thing if I want, but that's just one here, and then we'll add the tag winter.
But you could put gloves, you could put goggles,
You could put
all that stuff, so you actually have a more refined
Absolutely.
idea of what
So
you
I'm going to hit save.
Yeah.
And this is actually something cool. So it says, hey there, we noticed that you're using the following tag, #winter. We'll use that information to remind you to reorder your stuff before the season starts.
So very cool.
So the interesting thing is, the Internet of Things, essentially, and I know the IFTT people,
IFT it, yeah.
they're building the plumbing, right? But who's actually building the stuff, the things?
Right.
Like who's actually building the house that we live in the Internet of Things? And this is something that's totally different from traditional self-storage, which they want to leave you in there and they don't remind you with an email about where's your stuff. They don't say, hey, you might want to come get it. So now what we're actually doing is having the opportunity to let our stuff talk back to us. Like maybe I want to get my winter stuff out in winter. Or maybe they see that I am all of a sudden with a phone, I'm in San Francisco for the weekend and I need something else, right? So we actually want to start adding the power of the mobile phone to something so simple as physical storage.
Got it.
So that's an example of the iPhone app that we have here. But what's really cool, talk about our driver application. So I already made a reservation here at the launch conference. So based on, this is my phone number, if you want to call me.
Yeah.
This is the address, 125 West 18th Street. And essentially, this is the first time I'm ever showing a browser-based application that our drivers use that will help us roll out to other cities. And the reason for that is if you have this vertically integrated transportation team, we want to make sure it's as lean as possible. So we've got deep linking into maps. You can text or call the customer. Soon we'll actually, for privacy reasons, we want to make sure that we can hide the phone, just like
Yeah, you can go
Uber.
through Trillia.
Yeah, Uber did that pretty soon after. It's not that hard, but we're only ramping up 3 more engineers actually.
They're full-time employees. It's
They're
allowed
full-time.
for them to call the customers.
So just to show you, normally this is a barcode scanner on Android because you can implement a barcode scanner. I'm just going to type in B1066, add the new bin. I can have notes, right? So it's like Sam was on stage with Jason. I can sign off when we create a paper trail. And
So they would hand that to you to sign off.
Exactly right. And then I can complete the pickup. I'm returning 0 empty bins, and that's it. So the booking status complete. And this essentially is now powering our entire backend. So I only dropped off 1 bin, but if I had dropped off 5 bins, that's why it prompted that question, how many empty bins are you picking up? If for some reason there was a discrepancy, essentially we're now outsourcing that pen and paper to a web-based technology.
It's great. And so when do you store all the boxes in Greenpoint and then take one truck every week out to your Jersey City to
Yeah.
save time and tolls, or what do you do? And then if I want something
When,
back,
when the company started, we probably didn't have to go out that much. But what's
Right.
actually happened is we're getting hundreds to literally sometimes thousands of, especially around the college kids' time, hundreds of thousands of items. And what we started to do is batch upload those items from a small staging facility to a big warehouse that you might see in Jersey City. And the way that we think about scaling the business is actually in two ways. One, you can run this distribution center in Boston, Philadelphia, DC, and it doesn't actually have to hold the inventory. It doesn't have to hold the customer's belongings for more than a few days that we put on a tractor trailer overnight and send it to our big warehouse facility. The second thing that's actually working really well for us, pardon me, is what we call MakeSpace Air. So MakeSpace Air is actually something that allows customers of MakeSpace to send stuff from anywhere or to anywhere. So we've had customers who are in Tokyo moving to New York saying, hey, where can I send my stuff to? We let them send to MakeSpace via the mail.
so I don't have to have you pick it up. I could UPS you stuff.
That's right.
So I could get these boxes from you, or can I send you a UPS box and tell you to dump
You
it
can
in one?
send us a UPS box, and we'll measure out the cubic footage. We actually have something launching not too far off where you'll be able to find MakeSpace boxes, air boxes at retail stores that you can actually batch upload to MakeSpace by buying a kit, and we'll reimburse you the cost for the cardboard. There's a lot of really interesting things that we can do, but the biggest is, we had a customer last week who is in Tennessee moving to China, and where were they supposed to put their things, right? And they used MakeSpace to mail
Right.
it to us, and it's almost like that physical goods
What's
escrow,
the biggest?
and that's
What's the biggest order you've stored? Like,
We-
has somebody put 20 boxes in?
yeah, the biggest one, and I felt so bad for this guy. Personally, did it. So we the founders did like.
What do you
the
mean you
first-
personally did it?
I personally did the first several hundred MakeSpace pickups myself.
Really?
Me and my business partners. Yeah. The worst one that I emotionally was, these are people's things, right? This is my stuff, and it's not like Amazon where if you lose one, we replace it. I actually did a man who was being evicted, and it was terrible because not only was he getting evicted, but he was a hoarder. And imagine the emotional anxiety of being separated from all of your things. He had like over 35 of bins or more, 40. And we actually thought he was going to churn out of the system because he was getting evicted.
Right.
He's been our best customer since, but it was so emotional to be there.
Yeah. And what do you guys charge? $10 a month per
So
box
each
or
one of
something?
these bins is $6.25. It starts for a minimum of 4 bins, which is $25 a month, and then each additional bin is just
So
$25.
what would that be in terms of Manhattan real estate? Have you ever sort of backed into?
Kind of the cubic footage,
Yeah, like if it was $6, because this looks like you could put 10 of these in a closet.
right?
So for 10 would be like $60 a month.
Yeah. So I mean, if you think about it,
think your closet's much
this
bigger.
is 3 cubic feet, so it's
Yeah.
$2 and something. But the big thing is, we play Tetris a lot better than even someone at Manhattan Mini Storage ever could.
Yeah.
Right. And if you get a space for 64 cubic feet for $125 a month, the reality is you're only using about half of it.
Right.
And that's actually the benefit. Again, back to the Amazon-like model, is we can play Tetris better than someone can at their local Manhattan Mini Storage.
And you are subletting storage, or you're finding your own buildings? How are you doing that?
I mean, we started very lean. The company's raised, thankfully, $10.1 million. But when we started, we were wondering, how can we get this business off the ground? And we subcontracted space through, someone who would rent us space in a big warehouse, and we would pay by the unit that we put inside. But as you can see, as we had this path to being, building our own infrastructure, one day we would absolutely, leverage the space ourselves.
And is this price going to come dramatically down, or is it the current? Because it does seem like as you have, the drivers fixed, people don't.
Yeah.
Do people order their stuff back that often, and do they pay for that?
So we do see people that use this almost, like I said, a second closet, and that's a great use case. But you hinted at something very interesting, which is, why am I paying for long-term parking when I park in short-term parking here on the West Side Highway?
Right.
How can you differentiate your service by maybe arbitraging real estate location prices? And you would never want to drive to Jersey City or
No.
Scranton, Pennsylvania, or the middle of Ohio, but we can. And as long as we can get your stuff back to you within 24 or 48 hours, or an amount of time that we guarantee for you, we really could put it anywhere.
What is that? Would that be tiered pricing then? Like 2 days is this price, and 1 day turnaround is this price?
I mean, imagine a world where we say to you, hey, it's X dollars per month and your stuff is stored here, and it's Y dollars per month and it's stored there. Or we say, hey, it costs you $79 to get it in 1 day turnaround, or $29 to get it within 3 to 5 days.
Got it.
But
What
right
is it-
now, the guarantee is 24 to 48 hours.
what does it cost to get my boxes back?
So it's $29 flat, which is, any New Yorker knows, less than the price of a round-trip taxi here, and you can get one or all of your bins back.
Even if it was the guy with 35?
Yeah, so it's
He would pay $1 per bin to get his
it's a
bins
pre-
back.
We chose a pretty flat pricing model, and so far, I think just like any service, whether it's Zappos, where you see power customers taking advantage
Yep.
of the service, there's almost a law of averages here.
Are people using this for things other than storing? Well, I wasn't thinking dead bodies or anything.
No,
but
memories?
Like, no, like, like the street finds its own use for technology. and-
Kilos of cocaine.
Exactly. Well, I mean, are people storing things that you'd anticipate? Like some restaurant is storing stuff, or like
The one surprise we had was we had retail customers, and there's a lot of retail people in here today, who said, look, we don't actually want to have inventory in our store because it costs us money to store it there, right? And it's very similar to the argument that Iron Mountain presents, which is an archiving company, document archiving. They present to law firms that says, you have to keep these records anyway. Why keep them in your Madison Ave or Fifth Ave law office, X dollars per square foot?
Yeah.
Why not store them off-site with us? And it's a very similar, argument. So we've seen business use cases where literally people want to store away inventory, retail inventory, and we've done a lot of trips back to them.
really? That's
Yeah.
fascinating. It would have to be pretty expensive inventory.
I think that it's probably even more expensive real estate.
I get it. And what about that sort of business with documents? Do you think you're going to have a time?
No,
when-
we want to leave that to the people like an Iron Mountain, and there's a clear delineation between like a business and a consumer brand.
Are people looking to you as a moving service? Because I'm in the middle of moving.
Yeah.
And I was talking to you about this, and I was actually talking to my wife. I was like, I wish there was
Yeah.
a way to just have you guys pick up 30 boxes,
Right.
store them, and then do the whole thing where I ship them. It would probably be less than using one of these untrustworthy moving companies.
Absolutely. I mean, there are ancillary revenue streams like this one. We call it hacked because we didn't have a 3-month minimum. And I was seeing requests for more than 20 bins, less than a month that they wanted to store. And they were changing the address of where they picked up and dropped off.
So they wanted you to
So-
pick up
absolutely.
on the 25th and deliver on the 2nd.
Right. And you'd see them come in right at the end of the month. So they'd be like, I really need to pick it up on the 30th. We decided that for right now to focus that we put in a 3-month minimum so that we weren't getting hacked with moves. But people were very clever.
Well, if they're
about
hacking you with moves, what about just giving them a price?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, but right now we want to ensure that we focus on our market, continue to grow. But it's absolutely something we could address because we know that at the time people are moving, they're trying to make space.
What do the storage companies think of you? I mean,
I don't
are
know.
they trying to compete now?
Did anyone read Business Insider about an hour and a half ago? There's
No.
just an article up on Business Insider. One of our biggest competitors here rebranded themselves. It used to be blue and white, and now all of a sudden it's green. It says, "Don't trust the cloud." And whether that's our local competitor here at Manhattan Mini or Public Storage taking pot shots at us.
Don't trust the cloud.
Don't trust. I think they literally, it's the Blockbuster Netflix thing, right? Or like, I want to offer everyone in this room, like, I'll print out your Gmail and store it in a Manhattan Mini storage for a year if that's
Yeah.
what they think is the way we're going.
You didn't print out these flyers to like create a viral sensation. That's bizarre. Why would they come after you?
I mean, it's like a typewriter saying, don't trust a computer and a floppy disk, they're going to lose your information. I think this is a toad sitting in the water that it's boiling in.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Questions from the audience? We must have some
There's
questions.
someone right there.
Okay, there we go. Boom.
Two feature requests.
Are you a current customer or considering?
Considering.
Okay, so use launch as a code and you'll get $50. That can go to everyone in the room. So
Okay,
we
launch
can
gets
start
you
with
$50.
that.
That's pretty good.
Right, so I want one of these in London,
Yeah.
okay, and Sydney. And like when I move between cities, I'd
Yep.
like the stuff to be moved directly to that data center or whatever center you want to call it.
Yep.
So it can be kind of an off-site extension. When can you do that?
Yeah.
It's actually really interesting. People talk about the network effect of a business. In particular, you saw this with Facebook,
Yep.
having network users not leaving the system. But I really admire Uber because what they've done is when you came here to New York, you pushed a button and you got a car.
Yeah.
When you go back to LA, you push a button, you got a car. When you go to
Right.
San Francisco, you push a button, you got a car.
When you go to Vegas,
I don't know what you do.
You're fucked. It's terrible. It's a
Okay.
disaster. You wait online is what you do.
Got it.
Or you pay somebody $50
And you complain about Uber,
to go for 3 minutes.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what I was going to say is, we see people like this gentleman just asked, where we had someone pick up and move to London, and wouldn't they just like to get to London, push a button, have their stuff?
Yeah.
I actually think there's a network effect of people who bounce around. We've actually got a customer, his name's Colin Hughes, he's a very well-known photographer, and he is a tech nomad. And he was actually one of the inspirations for this MakeSpace Air product, that he's post-geographic nomad in the sense that he travels with a laptop, his Dropbox is his photo album, and he literally is in New York for maybe 1 week. He'll have MakeSpace meet at his hotel room or his Airbnb where he's staying. He'll change out the stuff that he needs for Mexico because he's coming from Tokyo, and off he goes.
Wow.
So we have people that are literally using MakeSpace like their closet in the cloud. And just like you mentioned, when you're in Sydney or you're in London, what it should look like one day is that closet in the cloud. It doesn't matter where you are. You should push a button and be able to get your stuff. Imagine the MakeSpace pop-up in Vail when we say, hey, don't travel home with your skis that you're going to sit in your garage.
Oh, wow.
Upload your skis to MakeSpace, and they'll meet you at whatever slope or whatever resort you want to go to next year.
Yeah, you can just store all that stuff and never have to go.
And you can make the decision to store it there outside of Vail, or you can make a decision to store it somewhere in Colorado, or you can send it back to the big distribution facility, and that's where we get smart with technology.
Was there another question? Yeah, let's take a last question.
So I was thinking about using one of your competitors last year, and it really helped crystallize my thinking about pricing. I've learned that stuff tends to stay in storage longer than I think it will. And your pricing seems high compared to conventional storage. Do you plan to address this, or do you just have more business than you can handle with current pricing?
I think what we've really hit a nail on the head with the current pricing, and customers value the convenience and accessibility for MakeSpace. That said, you raise a really interesting point, is why shouldn't physical storage follow the same price economics of virtual cloud storage?
Yeah, it should go down every X number of years.
Absolutely right. So I'm not going to foreshadow anything, but right now our prices will stay the same, and that's something that no competitor of mine will do in New York,
Right.
and I can guarantee that you'll see us shake up the industry in a few years as well.
And it'll be different pricing probably per city.
Sure.
I mean, it's different cities have different cost structures and movement patterns and whatever.
That's right.
So, and second city, third city, I mean, have you perfected it here in New York enough to go to another city?
Yeah, the focus is to continue to perfect here in New York City, but we've already got customers, like I said, from Tennessee to Tokyo to London. So with MakeSpace Air, we've already expanded our horizon.
Is it profitable? Like, have you figured out that part of the model? Like, at $6 a box
Yeah.
and $29, like, is it sustainable? Like, you're not going to go out of business
no.
and have a problem?
Absolutely sustainable on a unit economics basis, but what you see, just like we look like a SaaS business where there's a huge investment in capital expenditure to create essentially the product, and then you have lock-in for a long time, because once people are in the system, they continue to use MakeSpace, they love the experience, and if I gave you a second closet or a third closet in your New York City shoebox, for lack of a better term, you're probably going to stick around for a long time. The second thing is it expands beyond just cities, because I think it's about 30% of two-car garages can only fit one car.
Yep, that's true.
It doesn't matter if you're in a mansion on Central Park West or low-income housing in Brownsville, Brooklyn, where I've done pickups in both. Everyone could use a little bit more space.
Go ahead. Question?
I think it's a fabulous business, and if you were in Boston, I would start using you tomorrow. But looking at the economics, you're sort of a smaller version of PODS, P-O-D-S, Portable On-Demand Storage.
Yeah.
So if you had more than 3 or 4 of these bins, wouldn't it make sense for the consumer to use a pod instead?
Yeah, how do the pods compare? I see those on the street sometimes. What are those
You've
cost?
seen them in LA. I haven't ever seen one in New York because they're huge. And what we're really riding, and by the way, they're very expensive because you have to actually get permits to get a pod into a city. The biggest thing is, you mentioned the pod. It's so big, you forget what's inside. What's nice about this is you've got an experience where you can log in online to an account, see exactly what you want, and get just one big bin back or get all of them.
Right.
And really, it's more of a user experience problem with the traditional pod. We're betting on urbanization and kind of micro-living, in that more and more people are moving to cities, and they're living in smaller and smaller places. And people who use pods mostly, actually, one of the big parts of their business is to rent out the pod as a structure. as an office on a job site, things like that. Less so actually for people who need storage like they need a second closet.
Yeah.
And with less than 50% of the actual storage business being for moves, we think there's a huge opportunity in a company like MakeSpace that's providing storage for people who aren't moving.
You have also these micro apartments, right? Bloomberg was able to push through like 150, 200 square foot
Feet.
apartments.
That's right, and we think this has great implications for cities like Singapore and or Tokyo, where there's a very small amount of space, and that's why we really continue to bet on urbanization.
Okay, final question.
Congratulations, Sam. I think it's an awesome business model.
Thank you very much.
When you were talking about skis, what made me think of it, I'm looking at the box and I'm going, I've seen some self-storage units. There's some pretty big, weird things in these self-storage units. Everything needs to fit in these green cases?
No, we take oversized items like luggage. The most common items are luggage, skis, snowboard, golf clubs, bicycles. We like to take durable, kind of bigger items right now. And our thought is, if it can fit into your closet at home, it can fit into your closet in the cloud. So let's say you have a big, oversized brown box. You can call up our customer service line, and we'll figure out how to make it work. But for the focus right now is really a standardization on these bins. And for a lot of people not having to get cardboard, this is a really great added feature for them.
Awesome. Let's hear for Sam Rosen of MakeSpace.
Thank you very much.
Well done.